If you live in North America and you have an 80s Escort, you have three possible exhaust manifold options, not including turbos. I have one turbo exhaust manifold. I'm going to make my own custom one in the future, but as far as naturally aspirated manifolds go, this is what was offered from the factory. So on the far left is the base model 1.6 manifold, often called the pancake manifold, because it's got this real nasty cast steel top half that's bolted to a giant round collector, and from the side it kind of looks like a stack of pancakes. And this sucker is heavy, being all cast at the top, but being cast, that makes it cheaper to make. Makes it really hardy, but it really cuts down on performance of the flow design it has. But what's nice with these is they come out of the engine bay real easy. You can either remove this whole piece as one, or you can remove it all with the head, or you can remove it with the entire engine itself. It comes right out just fine, because the connector, the joint connector, is right in between the engine and the radiator. So this whole thing just goes straight up the front of the car without any issue. It's got two EGR bungs. Pretty simple. The port sizes on these are fairly small. They're almost a perfect match to the head. These are just a tiny bit bigger than what the porting on a normal 1.6 head is. But 1983 they came out with the high output option, so you could get a 1.6 with a high output carburetor, camshaft, and set of headers. Or in 83 you could also get EFI. EFI would also get you the headers and the high output cam. All of that gets you a snappy 10 more horsepower, but these headers allow you to make more power in the future, which is key. So yeah, these being headers, they're very light. It's all mild steel. The flow is really good. You can see how nice everything is, unlike this very inefficient 4-into-1 collector. This one is a 4-to-2-to-1, and the port sizes are pretty big. It's bigger than these, and it's the same port sizes as the 1.9 EFI high output headers. We'll touch on that in a minute, but what I wanted to note is that this has the same EGR bung locations as the cast manifold does. This one also has siphon tubes that take up a fair bit of the ports in each of these, but you could always cut these off and weld the hole shut, or pull them out somehow, then again weld the hole shut, and then now you're making things more efficient. But otherwise, these are really nice. What stinks about them is where they put the connector. The connector, you can see if I set this here, I take my base manifold next to it, you can see that one connects the header, and that's a lot farther back than the manifold does. Like, remember when I said this manifold, it connects right in between the engine and the radiator? This one, the collector, is right underneath the oil pan. You can probably see it better if I hold it up like this. So you can see that that's right underneath the head, so it would be right underneath the oil pan. It's not very fun to get at or get to. The only way to get this out of the engine bay is with a lot of removing a lot of coolant lines, cutting a lot of hoses, and then monkeying around with a whole lot of stuff under the hood. Or the easier way is to remove the head of the engine, then remove this. So if you can picture it from the side angle, it sits like this inside the front of the car. If you remove the head, you can rotate this 90 degrees towards the firewall, like this, and now your downpipe tube, you know, the last 10 inches, it can now go vertically straight up if you have the head removed. Or you can leave this attached to the entire engine and yank it all straight out the top, which is probably even easier than removing the head and yanking that out. Yeah, maybe it depends on what you have for options under the hood. But anyways, that's how that works. Next is the 1.9 EFI high output. This one has the same bore diameters as our 83 to 85 header. And it's got the same pipe diameter and bends in the same exact places, made the same exact way, except when you get down to here. When I put these side by side, you can see a noticeable difference. The 1.9, its last two runners are very long. It goes all the way to the firewall of the car. Remember how I said this one joins underneath the oil pan? This one joins underneath the firewall. So you're not getting this out unless the engine's coming out with it, or you're lucky enough to drop it out the bottom. But I don't know how complicated the 1.9 engine bays are, so I don't have any details for you. Other differences is this doesn't have the weird siphon tubes that the 83 high output header has, and it's because they moved the tube way down back here, which is far out of the way. You could easily cut that one tube off like someone has done before and weld it shut. Now you're more efficient. And you can also remove the EGR, which is now at the furthest part of the exhaust manifold. You can lob that off, weld it, or unbolt it, and then put it in a plug. Either way will really help your your scavenging and your exhaust flow in general. But this one also has a little bung, do I dare say, right between the two main down tubes for an O2 sensor, because remember when I said this is a 1.9 EFI high output. So it has EFI, you gotta have an O2 sensor somewhere before the catalytic converter, they put it there. I also have this really dorky heat shield, but when this is painted up and they sand the surface, it looks like the 1.9 EFI high output intake manifold and valve cover. This one, they also leave a stud so you could do something similar, but I haven't played around with it to know exactly what all you can put on that. I'll have a video on what you can do with that in the future, but this is supposed to have a heat shield going across the top with a little hole in it for a funnel to funnel the air off of the exhaust manifold and into the bottom of your intake, so it controls how much air is going into your air box when it's cold versus when it's hot. I'd like to keep that on my car because here in Wisconsin our mornings are cold even in the summer, so having that, I've noticed, does help with startup and initial warming up sequences. So but it is a somewhat universal thing. It will fit on all of these as far as I know, so sometime I'll try that. Hopefully that works out well. I'll have a video on that sometime soon, because they're all are alternatives to the chrome piping they have on there. But before I end things, you need to know that all these, anytime you change from one header to another, or manifold to a header, or for whatever reason you go backwards, you need to change the entire exhaust behind it. So, because remember I said that some of these have the connector closer to the radiator, right underneath the oil pan, or behind the oil pan. They all take a different exhaust system behind it. So this one here that I have that has the dark catalytic converter, this is for the base exhaust manifold. We'll stick it in there just like that, and that's more or less what it looks like when my camera focuses. So, just like I said, this connector goes right underneath the oil pan, and then it makes a couple chicanes, and right where the firewall starts are these hangers. So these hangers are perfectly in line with the firewall, and then you go straight for a while, make some dips and dives, and then your last hanger before the muffler is right there, and then your absolute last hanger is on tailpipe. Most EXPs are supposed to have twin tailpipes. You see they leave out a big oval specifically for that, to have two tips, but oftentimes the muffler rots out, you need a new one, and almost all of them are only single. Finding a muffler with dual tips out of the muffler itself is really hard. I haven't found any that fit this shape. But you could always fabricate a Y in here and then put chrome little tips on that or something. I just haven't gotten to it yet. It's a little, that'll take some shopping and some designing on my end. Right next to it, we have the 83 high output header, or EFI, depending on how you look at it. That's how that is. Like I said, that joint's right underneath the oil pan, and then it makes a little chicane, and then from this turn on, it's almost identical to the stock, or should I say base level exhaust system. All the turns and stuff are the same because it has to fit underneath the same car, because the floor pans on all these are the same. It's just what they do with the catalytic converters and where the leading connectors are. On the high output models, there's supposed to be a long catalytic converter somewhere in this leading stretch between my foot and the beginning, but I don't have any intact to show you or to know myself. Obviously this one's been straight piped, a little illegal, so I'll have to fabricate a cat to be road legal here in Wisconsin. And then I don't have any exhaust systems for second gen, so I can't tell you much about this. I haven't even seen the exhaust system for this guy, so I have nothing to share about that. As far as sound and performance comparisons, I don't have any yet. I'd love to do one someday. Someday I'll have a motor on a stand and we'll go through and run each of these on a 1.6 and a 1.9 of varying performances. But I can tell you immediately, those are the worst. Next best, best city best, unless you're doing turbo stuff. Then things get a little bit more complex what your options are. But as far as carbureted and fuel injection goes, worst, better, best. If you can just remember that, it's not too hard. And the difference between these two, like I said, isn't much, but mega difference between normal manifold and going to headers. I've been making some, I don't want to say blank flanges, but header flanges without any piping on them yet. So I have just that thick strip there, and I've already cut out all the holes and all the ports. I just need to create my own header for it. So someday we'll get to that, because almost all my EXPs have the base manifold, and I'd love to change it out for a header, but like I said, you have to change the entire exhaust behind it. And I know a lot of EXP owners have the same issue. They want to ditch this inefficient heavy POS and they want something with much better flow and a lot less weight. So I will be making headers similar to these, but fit this configuration with this collector down here. That is key. So we'll have a 4 into 2 into 1. So it looks just like that, but we'll have the final collector before the bottom curve, so we can fit this in here. That would be ideal, because then you have a full header system at only this size. You can remove it by itself, or you can remove it with the engine head, or you can remove it with the entire engine. And that would be beyond ideal for me. It obviously wouldn't have as much top end horsepower as the long tube headers, but it would be a much better setup than what these base systems are. So anyways, we'll leave it at that. Like I said, I'm switching to this one in particular from the base manifold, and we'll save that one for the future because I want to leave that with my other 1.9 high output goodies, since I have so few of them. I only have one full set, but I got a couple headers, the 83 to 85 headers that I can play with, and that's plenty for me until I make more better of that, right? So yeah, we'll call that good enough. If it keeps on raining, we'll see you guys next time.